Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years retirement community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann. And today we are thrilled to welcome TV host, writer, and star from one of the most beloved sitcoms of all time, Bewitched, where she played Tabitha, Erin Murphy. Erin, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Well, to start with, we were talking, Ike and I were talking, Bewitched is constantly ranked on lists of the best sitcoms of all time. It had great writers. One of them at the beginning was actually, we looked at Danny Arnold, who was responsible for Barney Miller. That's also. And I grew up watching it. It was always on in syndication, a staple. It's incredible to think that we're nearing 60 years since it debuted. I can't believe it, because I just remember it so vividly watching it. What do you think it is about the show that continues to its longevity?
Well, you're aging me, since I was born the year Bewitched debuted. So I don't think we're anywhere near 60 years. But,
we'll cut that part out.
Yeah, no, leave it in. It's funny. I think Bewitched is one of those shows that had all the right elements. We had great writers and actors, and it's kind of a universal concept. So the whole magical element kind of is. Do you hear my dog?
Oh, I love it. Absolutely. I see the tail wagging. It's fantastic.
There he is. Wait. Oh, here. He's trying to get the cat. So this will be a very, very interesting podcast. It's like, I don't know, Tom and Jerry or whatever. But I think Bewitched was just one of those shows that it was done well, and it's held up surprisingly well over time, even with all the special effects. So people love it, and I'm happy they do.
Yes, absolutely. I still do. I still watch it. There were actually lyrics. I didn't even know this till this weekend when I was doing research. There were lyrics to the theme song, and it was pretty good. I mean, so why did they not use that? Do you know anything about that?
They just never ended up using the lyrics. The original song that Liz Montgomery wanted, she wanted Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, the famous classic. But no, there are lyrics to the Bewitched song, but they were never used. It was written with lyrics, but they never even considered it for some reason.
I was just looking it up. Right. I was amazed, like the Steve Lawrence singing it. It was pretty good. But anyway, you were, this is one of the things, you were barely out of the womb when your career started. I love Bewitched, but when watching that or any show, it's like you just don't think about how that kid is so young and acting. In your mind, was it just like getting to play make-believe? And Ike did the same thing. I mean, basically, the two of you.
Oh, nowhere near as young as you did, for sure.
No, I started at 11 months, and I think my parents. Hang on, I'm going to make my puppy stop barking. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay, I think I remember your question.
Yeah.
I did start acting very, very young. I started at 11 months was my first commercial. And my parents, my dad had a business college on Lankershim Boulevard, right by the Television Academy. And everywhere my parents would go, I have a fraternal twin sister. So we'd be two little blonde babies, and people came up to them and said, "Oh my gosh, they should be in television. You should get an agent," that kind of thing. So got an agent and started doing commercials very quickly.
Wow.
Just like that.
Well, I know. When I first started, of course, my father was an actor, and he was in live television in Houston, Texas, and we ended up moving out to Los Angeles when I was fairly young, about 6 years old. But that was the thing. It was like everyone was either in the business or knew somebody was in the business, and simply because if you were in the business and you had children, it was like this automatic kind of thing to get them into it. So I'm always curious, especially with someone like you who landed such a huge show, where that came from. And you obviously you were so young when you started, but at what point did you actually watch the show and were aware of what you were doing?
It's so weird, because starting as a baby, it's just as much a part of my life as anything else. So I didn't get it, I don't think, until much later. It just seemed like oh, well, what show are you on? Like, it just
Yeah.
seemed like everyone was on a TV
Everyone.
show.
Yeah.
But gosh, I'm not even sure. It was weird because everywhere we would go, my whole life, we'd go out to dinner and everyone would know who I was. So it was like, oh, hi, Erin, hi. Like strangers knew who I was from the show, but I just thought that was normal, which clearly it wasn't.
Wow.
I do remember a few times when I was really young, Bewitched was on past my bedtime. So I remember waking up and it seemed like the middle of the night and going out for a glass of water, and my parents would be watching Bewitched. So I would sit down and watch it. But I don't know, it never really struck me as anything like, oh, wow, I'm on TV, because it's, part of what my life was.
Well, that's it, because
Wow.
I always ask Ike the same thing, it makes sense that you just think, this is what everyone does. This is what all kids do. All kids are on their TV shows or something. And if you're sheltered from everything else, kind of.
Well, it seemed like it, because at the time when I was old enough to be in school, I went to school on the set, and days when I wasn't filming, I would go back to, a regular classroom. And it's weird because it obviously didn't seem odd to me, but many years later, I was taping some kind of a talk show or something. And my elementary school teacher came to the taping, and she came up to me and told me a story I didn't remember, that the days that I would film, a limo would come and pick me up at elementary school, and the entire class would walk out and wave goodbye to me.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I never got the limo treatment even from Disney. So it just, yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, it's so fun. It is interesting how those experiences, like ours, are parallel in the sense that my father was on live television. And he started before I was born. So I grew up watching my father on the box in the living room, and then he would come home, and I went to his personal appearances with him frequently. So, but somehow I understood that not every kid had that life. I don't know why, but I was always able to separate myself from that, from the magic of it, in that way. And I didn't include everybody, but no, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, back then, we were living in the Valley. We had a house up Beverly Glen, and at Sherman Oaks Elementary School, lots of the other kids were actors, or they had parents in the business. So,
Yeah.
There were, kids of producers and directors and writers. And I clearly remember everyone talking about, what auditions they had that day. It's so part of growing up in the Valley, I guess.
Yeah, no, most definitely. It's very strange in so many ways, but so obvious in so many others. So, wow.
In my school, we talked about what baseball cards we get, so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned your sister. Your sister was also shared the role of Tabitha for a little bit. So
yes, they were mainly auditioning twins. They
Right.
definitely auditioned some other child actors who weren't twins. I know. So I've heard Jodie Foster and Helen Hunt were up for the part.
Oh,
It's an
wow.
absolute lie. It's a Hollywood rumor, and people quote it like it's true. Absolutely not true. Jodie Foster is a couple years older than I am. Helen Hunt didn't work until she was older, so they did not audition for the part. But I did find out a few years ago, Tracy Nelson did audition for the part.
wow.
So so they were auditioning some single kids. But the part of Tabitha started in the black and white episodes. The first couple seasons, they got married, they had a baby, and it was a couple sets of twins in black and white. My sister and I started in the very first episode of the third season. So the first color episode is when I started on Bewitched. But we're fraternal twins. So we really, even as babies, we really didn't look that much alike. So they would show me from the front, my sister from the back or from a distance, and they'd have her more for the, real active things like pounding on a pan or something, because otherwise Diane and I are dear, dear friends, obviously, but she didn't really like the biz as much as I do. So they would bring her on the set and she'd start to cry. So
yeah, there's
yeah,
that.
so as it went on, we looked less alike. And also Bill Asher, who was married to Liz Montgomery and one of our producers, he told me later that what they would do to get around kind of the child welfare laws, they say, okay, it's time to bring Diane on, and they'd bring me off the set, and then they'd bring me right back on the set. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it was a different time.
Yeah, I did. I never had it. Well, I mean, my daily demands perhaps not as heavy as yours were, but no one ever snuck me around like that. I would have never gotten away with a fake twin in the dressing room.
But Ike, you worked with my sister. I don't know if you remember this. You and my sister Diane did an after school special called Magical Mystery Trip into Little Red's Head.
Oh,
and it was a voice of it. And she was your sister on that. So you guys did the voices on that.
Oh my God. Yes. I remember doing, I know the show because I remember doing it, but I don't remember anyone I worked with. So I'm so happy to know that, or be at least reminded of that. Thank you very much. But that's fantastic. Oh yeah. That was a fun show. Did she do a lot of voice work?
She didn't. She did a little bit. It just wasn't her thing. She did, when I was working on Bewitched, I couldn't audition for other things. So I was kind of locked into that contract. And when the show was over, I could audition more. But Diane did audition and did a bunch of commercials. It wasn't really for her. She's happy to be away from the business as an adult. But
so there was no fighting over who's going to go on as Tabitha. It was just you, right? No awkward moments at home. Right?
You did a lot of commercials though as well. Was that after the show's run?
They were after the show. I did maybe 3 commercials before Bewitched, including one with Ronald Reagan back before he was governor of California. Wow. And he was the spokesperson for Borateam detergent. So there's a commercial that you can find online where I'm like toddling around topless in a diaper with Ronald Reagan.
All right. I'll get right on that.
but as an adult, I've done a lot of commercials, and after the show, I also did a bunch of voiceover work. I did ADR. It wasn't called ADR then, for all the Disney movies like Tom Sawyer. I was the voice of Wendy from the Wendy's commercials. It started out animated, so I was Wendy. And then my sister and I did the voices for MD toilet paper, which I don't even know if it's still around. They had the MD twins. So it was a little cartoon twins on their packaging. So we did all those commercials.
God, great. Outstanding.
So in all the years that you did ADR work, you guys never ran into each other? I mean, never?
No, she and I did not.
No, and you're now not in it, and now I am in it. So it's funny because I do a bunch of looping in ADR now, but everyone always talks about you and the Mad Dogs.
I had that was I hope you're having as much fun as I did, because I swear I think it's it's the greatest gig you can get, first of all, because part of what drove me into it, and people kind of looked at me when I expressed this desire to be a part of it, because they thought, God, you've got this great career. I mean, it's on-camera career. You really want to give it up for that? But I had reached a point in my early 20s where it's like, I worked my whole life. I was tired of auditioning. I was exhausted from it. It was actually not working out for me anymore because my attitude was bad, and I wanted to do voice work. And I just got, I learned about the business through pure coincidence. A friend of mine who did it, she worked a heck of a lot more than I ever did, and she ended up making an introduction for me to this thing. And I thought, man, this is a gold mine, just to get called to work. And, it's all SAG contracts and there's residuals involved. And here I am, boasting about something out there for all these poor actors who may be listening that might find it hard to get into. But I swear I loved it. So I'm so happy to hear that you're involved.
I love it so much. And as an adult, I kind of fell into it accidentally. I mean, I've been doing, some voiceover and commercials and things like that. But I have always said that when my youngest son graduated from high school, I would get back into the business. And I meant it. I have long-term goals, and I think, okay, this is when I'll do this. So my son graduated from high school, and then there was a pandemic. So it was not the perfect time to, go meet agents and, walk in with a mask. So I didn't do any of that. But I started having friends kind of say, oh, you should do this. And I had heard that it was basically impossible to infiltrate a loop group. That's
Right.
what I had heard over and
Yeah.
over again. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time. It was kind of there when they were working on a show, and they said, hey, you want to jump in and play is the term. And I
Yeah.
did, and it was fun. And then the pandemic came, and I was willing to set up a booth at home since everything was virtual. And I just feel so lucky and love it. It's so much fun. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really the most fun job.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I'm really happy to hear that. That's great.
Absolutely. Because
I wanna-
now on my resume, I have things like, oh, so what voice did you do in The Stand or whatever? And no one really knows unless you're something like, oh, I'm that weather girl. I'm that. But my
Yeah.
claim to fame, I always say, oh no, I was the elevator sex girl on The Stand on NBC.
That's funny.
I want to ask, I read one thing which blew me away. It was funny to me. You used to, even as a kid, you used to count your lines in the script, to see how many you had.
Wait, everybody counts their lines, don't they? No, we would
You were
get
so
the
young.
script. Yeah, no, the scripts would be delivered to our house, and my dad would highlight my lines. So it's like, and then the script, and I remember, going through the pages and counting my lines. So yeah, I don't know how you know that, but I did do that.
I read a lot of things online, so I want to see what's true and what's not.
Yeah, that one's true. I did count my lines. And you know what? I still count my lines.
No. Were you because I know this was true for me, and I don't know why, but I've talked to other child actors who were this way as well. Was it fairly easy for you to memorize your lines, and did you memorize just yours, or were you able to memorize everyone's? Because I ended up memorizing the entire script, and I don't know why.
I memorized everyone's, and I still do. I don't know why. It's just you hear it, and I do. So I remember on Bewitched, all the adults had their scripts on the floor, like by the coffee table or behind something, and they'd have their scripts, but I knew all their lines. So I don't know what it is. And it's when I was older in my 20s, I started doing a little theater in LA, and I did Shakespeare of all things. And I thought, oh, well, I don't know if I'll ever learn this, but after a couple rehearsals, I knew everybody's lines.
Wow.
So I think it might be a kid actor thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm glad to hear it's consistent.
How were you treated by the older actors on the set?
I was treated really well, but I wasn't treated like a little kid. And so it's interesting, like they talked to me like an adult, even though I started on Bewitched before I was 2. And I mean, every set I was on as a kid, they talked to me like an adult. No one talked down to me. So I remember being a kid, and when I go to my friends' houses, I'd always end up talking to their parents and things because I felt like I had more in common with the grown-ups sometimes.
I get it. Yep.
It was just one of those W.C. Fields things, like kid, you bother me, get out, get out of here. I was wondering if that was the case ever with anyone.
No, I mean, there are rumors about people say about Paul Lynde that he didn't like kids. Paul Lynde was great to me, or at least, I mean, in my memory, I was treated very well.
Well, we're going to ask you about him a little bit later. What was he like, though, Paul Lynde? I mean, was he as funny off camera as on?
Yeah, well, he was a lot like he was on camera, off camera. He's kind of a little sarcastic and dry. And I've always been one for a sense of humor. So smart and funny is appealing. So I enjoyed being around Paul Lynde.
I want to ask about Dick York. Famously had horrendous back pains and had to leave the series. Now, these are more things that I read. I wanted to find out. I read one place that he voluntarily left and another place that he was kind of pushed out. So
I think a fair, honest answer is a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. He had hurt his back on a film early in his career called They Came to Cordura, or They Came from Cordura, and they were doing a scene with one of those railroad cars, where like nee, 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 and like one person on each side. And when the director called cut, everyone let go. They were lifting the car. Everyone let go, and he didn't. So he was left with all the weight of the car and a person who was on it, and it just wrenched his spine. Oh, so he was in terrible pain, and his spine was deteriorating. So on Bewitched, they built this, it was kind of a wall, kind of a board where he could lean against it during scenes instead of sitting down or standing. But I mean, it got to such a bad point that the last season he was on the show, he was on for 5 seasons. Dick Sargent was on for 3. The last season he was on the show, he was in so much pain that they had to write him out of episodes. So there would be episodes written with the Darren character and he wouldn't be able to work. And it got to the point where one day on set, he had a seizure. So he went to the hospital and never came back. I mean, he obviously came back. He went home to his wife and family, but he never came back to Bewitched. So their idea, and it sort of worked, but not really. Their idea was that in season 6, introducing Dick Sargent as the new Darren, they aired all the episodes that didn't have the Darren character from the season before. So they aired like 7 or 8 episodes in a row without Darren. And they thought, okay, no one will notice. They haven't seen him in 8 episodes. No one will be able to tell it's a different guy. But yeah, that's what they did. But
oh man,
it was sad. It was a sad situation where he loved the show. He wanted to go back. When we talked as an adult, I mean, he had, great sadness, I would say, about not being able to continue on the show, but he really wasn't able to.
That's really, really rough. But no, a lot of us noticed, even
everyone noticed.
Yeah, I know. I'm just being mildly sarcastic. I did as a child, and I've clearly it's a very jarring thing to try to, adjust to a brand new actor, taking on the role. I mean, how was it for everyone on set, or how was it for you to relate to a new, personality?
It went well. It was different because they were as different as 2 people could be. Liz Montgomery was good friends with Dick Sargent. So, I mean, they were happy and everything. Agnes Moorehead, not such a big fan of Dick Sargent.
That's what I heard.
Preferred Dick York. She did not like change, and this was a big change, but it went well. For fans, I think people who watch the show always have a favorite Darren. Most of the people who started watching it in the 60s prefer Dick York because it was kind of a kinder, gentler, maybe funnier Darren. Dick Sargent played it a little angrier, but it's interesting because kids who are younger grew up watching the later episodes because for years they didn't run the black and white, they ran more of the color ones. So people who started with Dick Sargent preferred him. So I guess it's like, who's your favorite James Bond? It's like whichever one you started with.
Or you get used to, you just get used to them. And I found when I watched it in syndication, there was a point in which it didn't matter to me. It was just like, okay, this is the Dick Sargent show and this is a Dick York show. And it was so much, what I liked about it was so much the same character, yet completely different. And I know that's an oxymoron, but it kind of worked, as best as it could, it worked. And thankfully it worked well enough, that you didn't lose the audience. And that you probably, I mean, I'm sure you gained the audience.
Yeah. Well, our show was one of the first where they replaced a lot of the main characters. Gladys Kravitz was first played by Alice Pierce, who even won an Emmy for the part, but then she had cancer and passed away. So they had to bring in Sandy Gould. So they had 2 Gladys Kravitz, they had 2 Louise Tates, the boss's wife, they had 2 Darrens. Yeah. They did it without really explaining it.
Well, witchcraft. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they almost wrote that. That was an idea that they had introducing Dick Sargent. They were going to have an episode, and I know there was even a treatment for it, that what about if Endora gets really mad at Darren and changes the way he looks? Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, probably would have had to go a little bit more extreme for that idea to work. But that's, everyone knocks stuff around when you're dealing with a problem like that. But hey, it worked out.
Did Agnes Moorehead treat Dick Sargent any different? I mean, I'm just curious that.
A little bit. A little bit. She was my favorite. I loved her so much. But yeah, she was a little chilly, I could say, to Dick Sargent, and even as a child, I noticed it.
Wow. Now, Elizabeth Montgomery wanted the series to end when Dick York left?
No.
Okay.
No. Actually, originally, Dick Sargent was offered the part of Darren first. When the series was first pitched, before Liz Montgomery and Bill Asher got involved, it was pitched with Dick Sargent and Tammy Grimes, an actress who went on to do something else. But they both turned it down, and Dick Sargent and Tammy Grimes did a show called The Tammy Grimes Show. And I've never even heard of it, so I don't know if either one of them are happy with that choice. But yeah.
This weekend I watched the clip of a few clips from the Tammy Grimes show, and Elizabeth Montgomery was fantastic. I mean, she was great, but I could see it. I could see Tammy Grimes in the role just by the way she played on her own sitcom. So I could see them offering her that as well.
I just realized I didn't answer your question. One of you asked if Liz wanted to quit the show.
End the show.
No, she didn't. And actually, our show went on for 8 seasons. We were picked up for 2 more seasons. So we were actually supposed to go on at least 10 seasons. But the show ended because Liz and Bill Asher were separating, and it was kind of their decision to end the show.
Did you feel a tone different? I mean, an atmospheric difference when they separated?
Not really. I think it was something that was oddly pointed out to me by my parents. We'd be watching the show, and I remember, my parents would say, "Oh, producer's girlfriend," like for different actresses who may have been on the show. And I remember thinking, wait, the producer is my Uncle Bill. What does that mean? So I don't know if there was a tone, but I know they were both interested in other people. This is all the gossip, but it's true. Interested in other people. Marriage wasn't working out, that type of thing.
We just mentioned tone. I mean, I definitely noticed, even as a kid, a tonal difference between the two Darrens. I mean, just, how the show was and how they were. I mean, both of them took to the role different approaches, but there was definitely, to me, a difference in the tone of the show itself. I mean, as each season went off, did you notice anything at the time, like, changes in that type of thing for the show?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the later years, we were kind of more into causes, and there were, things going on in the world. So Liz she wasn't a fluffy person. She wanted the show to have a little more depth. So you see the dogs fighting.
Oh yeah, it's outstanding. Yes, I love it.
I think it's because I'm a mom. I could totally juggle and do this and act like nothing's going on while there's chaos behind me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I do think the tone of the show changed over the years, as it should. I mean, it can't stay the same forever. It was on for 8 seasons, which is a very healthy long run.
Yeah, that is a long run. Well, I want to make a Mad Men segue here for a second, because
Please do.
Bewitched was one of the few shows I watched growing up that had this lovely social behavior going on in it, where Darren comes home and gets a cocktail, and when the second he walks through the door, and there was the cocktail cart, this whole piece of furniture, which was not in my house. I did not grow up with that. Now, somehow we found out that the actors were actually drinking alcohol. Is that true, or is that another myth?
They were occasionally drinking alcohol, not always, but occasionally there was alcohol in the bar. And I always thought that was interesting too, because growing up there, I spent as much time or more time on set than I did at home. So I thought, come home from work and you should have a cocktail. But my parents didn't have a bar. My parents had a bar, but it had the same bottles in it my entire life. From the time I was a baby until I went to college, same bottles were there. Austin, stop. This is the troublemaker.
Oh my God. And how old is he?
He's 9 months.
Oh my gosh, you still have some growing to do there.
Yeah, he's actually a very, very mellow puppy, but yeah, something about podcasts make him bark. I don't know, it makes him bark every time.
No, it's the second you divert your attention somewhere else, they seem to feel that energy and want to pull it back to them. So hey, we're used to that with working with actors. So
Well, I worked with Lassie, and that wasn't much easier.
Oh gosh, no. But we are going to talk about that later. So I do want to ask you, because one of my favorite things was working with studio dogs, studio animals, period. And I often brag, and it's actually just a exaggeration, but I feel like I've worked with almost every animal you can out there, other than big zoo animals. But one of my favorite things as a young actor, especially working at Disney, was getting to do all the special effects and you know, dreaming about being in TV and movies when I was a kid, watching Bewitched yet again. The magic was such a huge part of that show, and the effects that were done, etc. How much fun was that for you? I mean, you know, and of course, knowing that it's not really magic, but being a part of it. How did you enjoy that?
I loved it so much. I loved the animals as much as you did. My favorite episodes by far would be ones where I get the script and there'd be a baby elephant in the script, or I'd be holding a chimp, it was a magical childhood. It was. The animals were my favorite part, but special effects were my second favorite part. I have always loved magic, and even though I know that there are some tricks behind the magic, I loved watching it. And I would hang out with George Ballerino, I called him Uncle George, who was the prop guy and who would set up a lot of that stuff. And I loved it. I always wanted to fly, which they never let me for some reason. But there was only one special effect that they did fairly often that I wasn't crazy about. And they would do this thing where a big balloon would come down and there'd be a message inside the balloon. So there'd be a scene, it's like, and a balloon would come down and then the balloon would pop. Oh. And there would be a guy standing next to the camera with like a little dart gun. And I'd be standing by the balloon and he'd blow a dart to pop the balloon. And I remember as a kid thinking, well, I couldn't act like I was worried, but I always worried, like, what if he misses? Or what if I was always worried that he would hit me.
Oh, a very legitimate worry.
Yes,
I mean, good grief. I mean, you hope you watching him practice, you know, off to the side to make sure he's completely accurate. That's incredible.
There was no practice. And another special effect that I love, because a friend of mine ended up doing it. There's a place here in Hollywood, you've probably been there, I call it the Magic Castle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yes. And Milt Larson is the gentleman behind the Magic Castle.
Right.
And a couple years ago, he told me a story where he was working at the Magic Castle, and he got a phone call from the set of Bewitched. Someone called, he picked up the phone, and they said, can any of your magicians do that tablecloth trick? You know, where you pull the tablecloth and all the dishes stay on the table. And he said, absolutely, I can do that. So he went to the set. He was supposed to be the hands of Uncle Arthur. So there's an episode where Uncle Arthur does that. So he was the hands. He didn't tell them, he had never done the tablecloth trick before. Never. So
oh no.
He got to set. It was all set up. And in one take, the very first time he tried it, he did it and it worked. So he said he was terrified, but it's also where he got his SAG card from doing that, being the hands of Uncle Arthur.
Oh my God, that's amazing. It's like, yeah, and that's the business where you never say you can't do anything, because, you know.
Wait, you're juggling. I'm juggling now. I'm riding a unicycle and juggling.
Yeah. No, I had a friend, a commercial actor, who on the audition, part of the requirements was that the actor be able to drive a dog sled. Can you drive a dog sled? And he went, oh yeah, and told a story about how he led a team somewhere, and like it was like this whole thing, and he ended up getting the commercial, and it was a disaster.
Yeah. I know. I had that experience a couple times in my career. When I was a child, I did a commercial for Post cereal, and we had to just ride bicycles. And of course I could ride a bicycle, but we had to ride bicycles through Griffith Park. They didn't tell me it was a 10 speed. I was a little kid with my little, Schwinn. So no, I went down a hill and then I crashed, but they got the shot.
Oh, how
that's
scary.
all that counts.
And then as an adult, there was a time when I've done everything in the business at this point, but I was working as a stunt person, and they just doing driving stuff. It wasn't even crazy driving stuff. But one was with a stick shift, and I didn't know how to drive a stick shift, and I wasn't going to tell them that, since I was already in wardrobe on set, dressed as the leading lady. So I taught myself to drive a stick shift on a road in Arizona.
Oh, good grief. Wow.
I read about this stunt work too. I didn't know if that was true either. That was amazing.
Oh yeah, that's a true one. I love this business. I do. I mean, my entire life, I've been trying to figure out what I want to do, because that's one of the things being a child actor. For some reason, I never thought, oh, well, I'm already doing what I want to do with my life. So I went to college. I tried to, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and everything kept leading me back into entertainment. So there was a time when I was living in Arizona and had a little ranch out there. And I started teaching acting. I started working on every single production that came into town, because Arizona is called a right to work state. So you don't have to be in a union to do a job. So, I was a casting director. I was a makeup artist. I did stunts. I did all kinds of things with very little to no training. But for stunts, it's like I could drive a wagon. I rode horses. I did all that stuff, because I've always considered myself fairly fearless. And I'm one of those people, like, life is short. I want to go everywhere. I want to learn everything. I want to try everything. So I've done a couple. I'm sure you're going to bring it up later, but I did Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Wrestling, and that was
I did read that. I wanted to, and you cannot find video. I was wondering if you had those videos erased.
Oh no, you can find it online. It was on the CMT network. All the videos are still online. You can find.
I'm gonna have to look for those. I was gonna ask about that later too.
Wow.
No, that was one of those jobs where I've tried to, and I have stayed in the business virtually my entire adult life, but I also have a family. So there was a time where I was thinking, okay, what jobs can I do and stay in the business? So I ended up doing a lot of television hosting and direct response infomercial type stuff, where you work a few days, but it's like working, a real steady job. And my agent got a call from Jason Hervey, who was on the Wonder Years. And he said, we have a job for Erin Murphy. She doesn't have to audition. We love her. We want her. And the pitch was, it's like Dancing with the Stars, which sounded great. Okay. And then they said, but it's wrestling. So it's like Dancing with the Stars, only wrestling. I didn't even for a moment say no, because they said something sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
you're fine. They said something. I consider these the two magic words in the entertainment business: favored nations, which means everyone gets paid the same amount. And so it was a job where they'd already, it was Dennis Rodman, it was Danny Bonaducci, Todd Bridges, just a wild kind of motley crew of people. Dustin Diamond from Saved by the Bell, Tiffany, the singer. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm getting paid the same amount as Dennis Rodman, that's a pretty good gig. And it was, but it was something. It was basically two teams. They divided us in two teams. Every 3 days, they teach us a couple wrestling moves, an entire wrestling match. So every 3 days, we learn these things. We perform them in front of a huge audience in a wrestling rink. It was nuts. But I went in thinking, okay, I don't want to look like that I'm afraid of it, because I'm not. So I was saying, okay, what else can I do? So Dennis Rodman was like throwing me off the turnbuckle, and I was knocking over Dustin Diamond, and it was brutal. It was hard and exhausting and kind of wonderful. All that.
That I watched, actually, I did watch that when it came on back then, but I couldn't find clips now. So I wanted to like, I'm gonna have to do it again.
It's still on. Oh, it's not working. It's still on. It's I don't like having regrets.
Oh, you're so cute.
There's so many things I've said no to in my life. Like, I've spent the majority of my career turning down things. Like Hugh Hefner started calling when I was 17, that kind of thing. So it's like I had no nudity, no, like I had so many things I would not consider doing. But then I went through this thing as an adult where I tried to say not to nudity. I mean, there's still things I have, things I won't do. But there was a year where I started saying yes to things like, okay, I'll do your student film. I'll do my friend's little whatever, and I said yes to all kinds of things I wouldn't normally. And it was such a fun year. So
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Now, if you don't mind, I would like to ask about some of the cast members, like individually, and just, of course, let's start with Elizabeth Montgomery, your relationship, what was she like? And later on years too, did you keep in touch, everything?
Yeah, she was great. It's so interesting because we spent so much time together that in some ways I'm more like Liz than like my own mom, because it was my first 8 years of my life I was on set, basically. So she was smart and hilarious and beautiful, and I think she was a lot, but no, most people don't get this when I say it, but I think she was a lot like Lucille Ball in that she was a beautiful woman who was not afraid to look ridiculous or do crazy things or make silly faces or any of that. And I think some of that might be because Bill Asher directed I Love Lucy and directed Bewitched. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but she was great. It's a weird thing about staying in touch, because I was in touch with most of the cast and crew, and still am in touch with people who are still alive. There's some directors and guest stars I'm still close with. But with Liz, the show ended. We weren't supposed to end. As I said, we were supposed to go on for 2 more seasons. We got a letter. Everyone got a letter in the mail, or it might have been a telegram actually at that time, but just saying, we've made the decision not to come back. So we never had a wrap party. We never had like the big goodbye. We went our ways thinking we were going on hiatus, and then it never, we never got back together at the time as a group. So with Liz, this was before the internet. So it's that we weren't Facebook friends because there wasn't Facebook. Right. And I was a kid. I didn't have a cell phone because there weren't cell phones. So we would stay in touch, through my parents with Christmas cards. And we would, maybe go up to Lake Arrowhead with her kids, who are still dear friends of mine. But we really didn't stay in touch like that. And as an adult, when I did have a cell phone, I was friends with her kids. So I would call and talk to her while I was trying to reach Billy, her son, or Rebecca, or something. So yeah, we didn't stay in touch that way. And then she passed away so young. But yeah, definitely someone I loved and admire very much.
And I asked about before if she wanted to quit when Dick York had left, because online, when I was reading all the things, they were like saying to check out the last couple of years, and I didn't notice this as a kid. I really did not, that that she changed on screen, and I went back this past week and watched a couple of the later season episodes, and they were right. She does not look happy to be there.
Yeah, I don't think she was as happy at the end, and I think they did continue. She didn't want to quit when Dick York left, but I think it was maybe the year after that. She and Bill were talking about, it's just not fun anymore. We're kind of recycling scripts, which they did. Like, there are only so many. Client has a problem, chaos, mad, there's only so many things you could do. But at the time, she and Bill Asher negotiated so they own a large portion of the show. So it's the same as it is now when actors who are a huge part of a show want to leave, they kind of throw money at them. So that happened.
How about your relationships with Dick Sargent and Dick York?
Really great. Dick York left the show when I was 5. I worked 3 years with Dick York, 3 years with Dick Sargent. So we weren't in touch again until I was a young adult. And the way we got in touch, I was here in LA doing a radio interview, and it happened to be Dick York's birthday. And for some reason, the DJs had Dick York's phone number. I didn't have his Dick York's phone number.
Wow.
They had his phone number. And they said, we've got his number. Why don't you call? They said they could give it to me. And I said, well, why don't I call him now? So I called him from the radio. I don't know what I was thinking. I called him from the radio, and it went to voicemail. But I didn't have a cell phone, but I gave my home number. And by the time I got home, from the radio, there was a message from him. So I called back, and I feel like we talked for hours. It may have been an hour. We talked for a long time, and it was a really inspirational time because it was shortly before he passed away. And at the time he was on oxygen and semi-bedridden. And he was talking so much about giving to other people, and that he was in the process of getting mattresses donated to a homeless shelter near his home in Michigan. And he told me something that I still do sometimes, where he said, when you see homeless people, you can give them money, but he didn't think I should give them money. He said, give them food and a kind word. And I was always nervous that if you give someone a doggy bag when you're leaving a restaurant, I always want it to be, I mean it in the nicest way. I don't ever want to offend someone. But he said, no, people want that. And just a smile. And so it stuck with me. He is very philanthropic and really a great guy. And then Dick Sargent was great as well. They're just so different. I mean, just very different people. He and I did stay in touch, and we ended up doing some talk shows together and some personal appearances together.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't even know what he's barking at. But he and I were, hang on. He was telling me his water bowl was empty.
Oh, there you go.
That takes precedence. Okay. Absolutely. Yes.
But Dick Sargent and I were definitely closer as adults. We did a bunch of appearances and things together. And it was a time that was in the 90s where there was so much talk about doing a Bewitched sequel, either a movie or a TV series. And it's one of those things they've talked about so many times over the years. So we've turned them down a lot. But at the time, someone had written a script, and they somehow were able to get all of us there, Dickie Sargent and I, and Casey Rogers, who is the second Louise Tate, and Sandy Gould, who is Gladys Kravitz. And we went to this little something like some kind of building in the valley, and they had some people there, and they had a TV with a little mock-up, like a sizzle reel of the pilot and a script. And going in, we thought, you know what, maybe the timing is right. Maybe we should do it. It's like People Magazine picked up a little blurb that I was going to be doing a new Bewitched. We thought, okay, maybe it's the right time. So we went and we watched it, and it was so awful. It was just, It was awful. And if Bewitched was such a great show, why do something that's not as good? I mean, I know people do reunions to kind of see what the characters look like, or, oh, I wonder what happened and how they transitioned. But this show was something where someone wanted to be a member of the family who wasn't a member of the family. And so this person had written a script that was all about them, and their friends from the South were in it. And we thought, and we were going to be like little guest spot things. We thought, no. So we left, and Dick Sargent and I went out to eat, and we thought, how do we tell them that we're not doing anything? And it turned into a thing where people were angry with us. And we thought, wait a minute. So,
No, Elizabeth Montgomery received separate fan mail for Pandora's box as Serena.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I'm sure you read that somewhere. I don't know what mail she got. I do know that a lot of people watching the show and people have asked me over the years, so who is the actress who played Serena? Do you still see Pandora's box? And it was like, you guys, it was a joke. They thought it was funny. It was obviously Liz. But yeah, no, people are so convinced. It's like, I think it's like Hannah Montana, which I don't watch. I think she played two characters.
Right.
People think it's two different actors, but no, same person.
I was shocked reading that. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it happened.
No, I agree. I think they probably did. I know. Speaking of like, there's the same thing. Was there any talk on the set about, I Dream of Jeannie, and I love the I Dream of Jeannie as well, but they borrowed very heavily from Bewitched.
Of course they did. It's because, Bewitched was
storylines, the whole.
I know. Well, Bewitched was a huge, huge hit. And I will forever say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Of course it is. It's like there's a magical, beautiful blonde. She's, with a man who's not magic. She has an evil twin with dark hair. I mean, yeah, there was a lot. But that's a question I'm asked all the time, especially when Nick at Night and TV Land would do Bewitched events and have me help promote. That was a huge thing. It's like, who is more powerful, Samantha or Jeannie? And this is my answer because I think it's pretty straightforward. Jeannie had a master and lived in a bottle.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. She was
a beautiful slave. Come on.
Yeah, I know. She was a kept genie. I mean, yeah.
And I loved
That's
I Dream
great.
I know I loved I Dream of Jeannie. I actually watched the show, obviously. And a few years ago, Barbara Eden and I were at an event and we took a photo together. And then people started talking about, oh my gosh, you should do a show. And, Jeannie could be your mom. And, I feel like until I have a script in my hand and an offer, I just say, oh yeah, that'd be great. That's my basic response is, oh, that sounds great. And send me an offer, send me a script if we like it and we're available. But yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know if on the set of Bewitched, like someone said, did you see I Dream of Jeannie last night? Did you see that? Like we did that back in season 2 or whatever,
No, and we didn't. But I want to say that Colonel Bellow's house, one of the houses on I Dream of Jeannie, was actually the Bewitched house. So I mean,
oh, wow.
they went steps further. I do know there was a little contention after Bewitched was over. Years later, Liz and Bill were long since divorced. Bill Asher directed, I think it was the I Dream of Jeannie reunion or something. And I was in his office when Liz called and she said, come on, like, what are you doing? Like she wasn't happy.
That's awesome. Now, how much fun was it to do on the last season? There was that Salem trip. How much fun was that?
Well, I'm sure it was fun for the people who went to Salem. I didn't go.
Did you get to go?
No.
Oh, wow.
So no, they did the Salem trip because we had a fire on the set and our set burned down. So that's why they did the Salem trip. They had to go in. When you watch the last season, you can see that we have an entirely new kitchen and suddenly there are stairs from the kitchen and all that. It's because it burned down. So yeah, that's why they did Salem. And I liked some of the Salem episodes. So, it was fun. I wish I'd gone.
But you went for the statue unveiling for.
I did. My friends at TV Land, they do, I don't think they do it anymore, but they did a series of TV landmarks where
Right.
they did these bronze statues kind of all across the country. There's a Mary Tyler Moore one, there's a Fonzie one, and then there's the I Love Lucy, I think, and then the Samantha Bewitched statues in Salem. So I went there and helped unveil it, which was fun. Although this is something I don't think anyone knows. We were there the day before because I'd just gone to the Bewitched film premiere, maybe a day or two before that. And so flew from New York up to Salem, and we were out to dinner with Larry Jones and the executives from TV Land. And they were showing me the plaque that was at the base of the statue. That was a beautiful engraved plaque, but they spelled Stevens wrong. So I had to tell them, you guys, you spelled it wrong. So they never told anyone. So they unveiled the statue without a plaque. And then I think months later, they put the plaque in.
Oh dear.
Oh, we have an exclusive. Now, when you remember being sad when the show ended, I mean, we've talked to a lot of former child actors, and most of them seemed like, I guess, I kind of like indifferent when the show ended. They were like sad, but they were like, I get to live my life now. I mean, how did you react when Bewitched was canceled?
Yeah, I didn't have a reaction I might have had if I knew we were ending. I always like the idea of closure. It's like, that's why a film is fun. You do a film, it's ending, you get to say goodbye. It's like you walk away. It's like, that was fun. So I didn't really get that closure that would have been nice. But I don't know. I guess I'm conflicted. At the time, I really loved being around kids my age. And that was my dream job at the time would have been like Brady Bunch or Partridge Family or something where you're surrounded by kids. I was in a classroom by myself. So that part I was happy about. Oh, yay, I can go back to school. I went to Girl Scout camp and things like that, which I loved. I was looking forward to knowing that we were doing 2 more seasons. I was excited because they were giving me episodes where I was doing more stuff. A lot of the show, it's like, Tabitha, go to your room, or, so it's like, I'm there, I smile, I, do something, and then I'm gone. There were more episodes at the end that were revolving around my character. And as I got older, there would have been more with going to school, things like that. So I was looking forward to that. But I think kid actors, you kind of get used to not even disappointment. It's like just kind of letting it go. You go on an audition, you do your best. If you don't get the part, it's okay. Melissa Sue Anderson got the part, or someone else got the part.
Because you were,
I didn't feel that way at all. No, if I didn't get it, I was mad.
The only thing that disappointed me, my mom went through this thing where if I got a commercial, like if you book the commercial, we'll get you the product. It was kind of a little bribery thing. So I remember that, like, oh, I wish I would get that commercial so how I could have that product, but.
Oh, that's funny.
You didn't get to spend a lot of time with other kids, really, because it was you. It was just basically you on the set, unless someone visited or whatever.
Yeah, that's why the episodes were fun. Where I went to preschool and there was a whole room full of kids. I loved those days. I would as I got older, there were episodes with kids or ice skating. I loved every episode where we went to the ranch in the valley and filmed outside. But there weren't a lot of kids there.
Man. Yeah, that was something else that never bothered me. I liked doing my own thing. I was very much a loner. I liked being the one child on set. I enjoyed that because I like you. I got along so well with the adults, and I felt more comfortable, with them than I did other kids my age. So, but were there any other prominent child actors that appeared on the show? Yeah.
Danny Bonaducci, he was on twice.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I think it was his first job. He was a character at my birthday party in one episode. And there was this another episode, something about a chimpanzee where he had a pet monkey. So he was on the show. Who else? There weren't really that many. I know I said Melissa Sue Anderson earlier. I didn't know she was on the show when she was on the show, but she was an extra in the classroom in one of the later seasons where I went to school. She was an extra, like in the back of a class. I had no idea, but someone sent me a clip where she was talking about it.
I read Maureen McCormick was on.
She was on before I was on. Maureen McCormick was on 2 episodes, but in one episode, both black and white. One episode she was playing a young Endora, and in another episode she was on with a whole bunch of kid actors. I think Cindy Eilbacher and maybe Billy Mooney. But where it was Darren was imagining what it would be like when he had kids, and there were like all these little witches and warlocks, but she wasn't on with me.
Now, after your thoughts on the TV show Tabitha?
They're conflicted. They made the show just a couple years after Bewitched went off. Since Bewitched was still popular when we went off the air, there's kind of a rush to, let's get back on the air. Let's get that Bewitched audience back. And when I heard that, I was 12, but I was excited. I was like, oh, yay, I can be like a teen, like a preteen witch. I thought that sounded fun. But then it was decided that the character would be in her 20s. So they hired Lisa Hartman, who's I think 10 years older than I am. And I watched it a couple times. It wasn't, I don't know. I'm not the only one who says it wasn't a great show. I mean,
it was only on a couple of times.
Yeah, no, it was one short season.
Right.
It got shuffled around. They did a pilot before Lisa Hartman with an actress who had dark brown hair and brown eyes named Liberty Williams. That one didn't sell. It wasn't great. I mean, it just wasn't. And they brought a couple Bewitched cast members on. The best thing I can say about the Tabitha series is I got paid for it because they show clips of me in the opening.
Well, there's that.
And the cartoon, and I don't even remember, I read there was a cartoon, I don't even remember that one.
Yeah, I didn't remember the cartoon either. I've heard about it now. They did a cartoon. I don't know when it was on, but it was called Tabitha and Adam and the Clown Family. And I've never seen it. It's kind of like one of those trivia things. I'm like you now, I read it online, but yeah, no one contacted me for, I don't really know anything about it.
Because I watched a lot of cartoons and I don't remember that. So,
yeah.
And I have to ask your thoughts on the Bewitched movie.
Mine are different than most people. I always I live on the beach. Now both of my dogs are barking at people walking their dogs by on the beach. So I can't stop this, but I'll keep talking.
That's all right.
Okay. I went to the premiere of the Bewitched movie. I was not in the Bewitched movie. If I wanted to and had an agent at the time, I'm sure I could have pushed it and been like one of the actresses auditioning for the part of Samantha, because they did a montage. They're like lots of little teeny bit parts I could have done if I pushed and wanted to. At the time I had children. It wasn't even in my mind. But I went to the premiere and I liked it. I think with Bewitched, if you do a straight remake where it's the exact same story with different actors, then there's too much comparison about, oh no, but it's Elizabeth Montgomery, and like comparing to the original. I thought it was, kind of a clever twist where she's really a witch, and they're remaking Bewitched. So it's kind of like a story within a story. I think Nicole Kidman's great. Steve Carell was great as Uncle Arthur. If I had cast it myself, I would have cast at the time Shirley MacLaine as Endora. So I thought that was great casting. It was what it was. It was like a little lighthearted romantic comedy. I mean, I watched it at the premiere. I watched it another time. I can't remember what it was for, maybe like USA Today or People or somebody was covering it, and they wanted to take me to the theater to watch it. So I went and watched it again. I liked it. I'm always surprised that people have such very strong negative feelings about it.
I was going to ask you answered the question, because I was annoyed while watching it that you did not have a cameo at least. I always look for cameos from the original.
That was probably my fault. I always surprise people because I work a lot still, even now, but I don't have an agent. The only agent, hang on.
Sure.
The only agent I've had as an adult is a hosting agent. So for television hosting or direct response, infomercial type things, I don't have an acting agent. So any acting type job I've done as an adult, even looping and all the voiceover stuff, is only because either someone I've worked with earlier in my career is casting it, or someone knows me from whatever, has seen me on something else and wants me. So, I mean, I only get jobs when people say, hey, Erin, we want you, because I don't have anyone out there looking. If I'd had an agent, I'm sure an agent at the time would have reached out and said, you're doing Bewitched, this is my client, let's get her in for a cameo. I didn't have that, and I'm not the kind of person who's going to contact them directly. Although I did contact them directly to go to the premiere. I had to reach out to get an invite to the premiere, and surprisingly, they did not invite Bill Asher, who was one of the creators and producers and married to Elizabeth Montgomery. He was not invited to the premiere.
Wow.
Yeah. Halston, just ignore them. They're friends and neighbors.
Because I remember when Race to Witch Mountain came out, this is years before I met Ike, and I was all excited to see him on the screen. So I was definitely looking for you when Bewitched came on. Now, I want to ask, did you watch WandaVision?
Did I watch what? WandaVision?
WandaVision.
I did watch WandaVision. I watched.
Great homage to Bewitched, really.
Yeah, absolutely. That and Mad Men. I'm sorry, Mad Men was a huge thing to Bewitched. But I watched it later than most people because so many people contacted me and said, you have to watch WandaVision. But I didn't have whatever the network was. Is it Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh.
didn't have Disney Plus, so it's like I held off. It's like, okay, I'll subscribe to Disney Plus, but I did. And I think Elizabeth Olsen's great. I think I like her very much as an actress.
Oh, it was I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really well done, the Bewitched segment of it. Now, there's another thing about you have none of your original scripts.
Okay, this you may have heard online. I had all my Bewitched scripts. And you know, when you move and things get lost and things are in storage, I somehow lost my entire box of Bewitched scripts. So I was doing another podcast just like this with my friend Bob Bergen, who does the voice of Porky Pig. He's a big voiceover guy. I was doing his podcast and they asked me about the scripts and I said, I do not have the scripts, but someone does. And I kind of did a plea, like if anyone sees my scripts. And while we were doing that podcast, they went on to eBay and found one of my actual scripts where it had my dad's notes on it and it was highlighted and all that. And I was so excited. I bought it. I did the buy it now. And then the guy in France contacted me and said, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake that it was up. It sold a year ago. So I was able to go back and look. Someone bought my entire box of scripts and I would buy it back if they're watching this. But no, I have none of that.
Wow. Yeah, I had kept many of my scripts, including Escape to Witch Mountain, and the same thing happened to me. I have so much of my memorabilia and pictures and stuff from my career, but somehow there were just some things that just, and I think, how could I have let that happen? I have no idea, but somehow it did, and it's just it's heartbreaking. You know, it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely, it's one of those things where when it happened and I realized it happened, I was like, no, oh, that's sad. It's like, I was thinking, oh, my kids should have those someday. You just have to let it go. It's just, but no, it's sad, but they're out there. At least they weren't destroyed or in a dumpster. It's like someone has them and sold all of them individually. So people are enjoying them. That's good.
Well, good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have any other memorabilia from the show? Or
yeah, I'm one of those people where there's so much stuff. I think I probably am taking after Elizabeth Montgomery like this. When I would go to her house as an adult, she would have pictures and things from other shows, including O.J. Simpson. She did a movie with O.J. Simpson and had that on display. She had nothing from Bewitched, not one photo, nothing. I have got boxes, literally boxes of things, but I don't have them out. So I mean, there's so many pictures and clippings from magazines. I mean, my parents didn't save anything except the scripts. There were Tabitha dolls that they didn't have. I think they got them for me when I was a child and then threw them away, but I was able to get those. So I mean, I have Tabitha dolls or Tabitha paper dolls. They're comic books. There's so much stuff, but it's like, what do you do with it? So it's all boxed up, and I don't know.
I know that
find it when I'm dead and do something.
Yeah, I thought, because I've got a couple of bins worth of stuff, and I look down because I keep one of them right here under my desk, because it's like I've got all my childhood career memories close to me, but yeah, there's nowhere to put everything. But who knew that Facebook and Instagram and Twitter was going to ever become a thing? And now I get a chance to share a lot of this stuff, because my father was, not only an actor but an avid photographer, and he shot a lot of behind the scenes stuff, on sets of some of my shows that I get to share on social media, and it's really a lot of fun, because I think, what else am I going to do with it? It's, maybe some of it will get published in my memoir, but you can't do that with everything, and so it's fun to share. People really enjoy it. And so just a thought, you probably do some of that anyway, but so people eat it up.
They do. I think it's funny because I've done so many things like talk shows and things as an adult. And there are some, I will not name names on the air, but there are some people who latch on so much to that one character that they did or something, that they'll dress like that all the time, or they'll, say little catchphrases, and they're constantly referring to themselves by their character name. I wish I could say names. This would be so juicy. But there are people like that. So when I started, I didn't do things like that for years. When I was on Bewitched, I did personal appearances all over the place. Like Baskin Robbins had Bewitched ice cream. So I went to all the Baskin Robbins and, I tap dance
Yeah.
at places and all the silly stuff we have to do. But I didn't start doing talk shows until I was in my early 20s. And so you get to know all these people that you maybe knew when you were a kid, or at least you knew their shows and were aware of them. And it's so interesting how different everyone is. That some people are very, it was a job. I loved it. I've moved on. And other people have latched on so much to it that if you said, do you have memorabilia? I could reach out. It's like, here's my doll and this book. And like, look at me. I'm not that person.
I get it.
No names, rhymes with, no.
I'll tell you when we're off the air.
No.
I was raised with the whole, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I mean, I'm always diplomatic. I don't tell other people's secrets. I'm just not that person. But the older I get, I don't want to say the more honest I get, but it's almost the more candid I get. That, if you ask, I'm going to answer honestly. I don't have to say everybody was great. Otherwise you're like, one of those kid actor robots where, they wind you up and send you out.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's true. And it's like, not everybody's perfect. By and
Nobody's perfect.
By and large, everyone I worked with, I can honestly say was absolutely incredible. But there are few who were, just not very incredible at all. And I don't mind talking about them. I really don't, because a number of them have changed their ways in later years because they've kind of had to. And, but it's not to disparage anyone, but especially when you're a child and you're working with someone and you're treated poorly by a well-known adult, that's just beyond not fair. And, and I just think it's wrong. And a couple things, experiences I had were rather surprising to me, considering how by and large, and it's not, it's like, it's almost cliche in a way, but, great actors and great performers are usually great people. I mean, because they didn't get to where they got, for no good reason, and so I had great experiences too, but I'm perfectly willing to tell a few tales.
I have found, as I've worked my way through this career, the bigger someone is, almost always the nicer they are. Some of the biggest people you meet, Ron Howard, is the nicest man in the world. I mean, there are people where, they don't have to always be nice, but they're the nicest people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you who's a jerk in the publishing industry. I wonder, after the series ended, how was the transition back into school? I mean, you were just on like this huge sitcom, and now how do kids like treat you and everything?
Yeah, it's so weird because I mean, I have so many friends who were former kid actors that really were terrorized at school, and I wasn't. And I think it's because, I don't know. I mean, I've always been nice to everybody. I've always been kind of self-deprecating. Like I'm not someone like, I'm a star. I've never felt that way. I kind of probably have gone too far the other way, that I want people to think that I'm down to earth. I'm nice, truly nice to everybody. So people were nice to me. So, I mean, going back to school was great because I was still enrolled in school while I was on the show. So going back to school, I mean, I was happy to be around friends. And I mean, I had a pretty easy go of it. I mean, like in junior high and high school that I know are tough times, I was pretty all-American. Everything was, I mean, I was a cheerleader and homecoming queen. And I mean, people were nice to me.
Yeah, I got the homecoming queen and the homecoming king there. I did not have, he was the homecoming queen king in his.
Yes, yeah, I had, it's so funny because I wasn't a social young person in high school. I had only a couple of friends and I wasn't part of the social groups and I didn't do things at school very much, but I became homecoming king myself. So it was all very nice odd.
Maybe you were nice to people.
I always did my best. I always did my best because I was like you. I could feel, I didn't go to school with other professional young people. I went to Grant High School. You probably know Grant.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I was often at both Milliken Junior High School and Grant High School, the first professional performers to go to, to go to school there. And so I had to teach them how they were supposed to deal with my professional life in terms of giving, schoolwork out, when I was going to be gone for months at a time. And so then I ended up wandering the halls as, the movie star kid or the Disney kid. And there was a big wall that was up between me and other children. They didn't know how to handle me. And I was like you, I was trying to just say, I'm just a kid, like everybody else. I just have this really fun job. And, but it either, they just didn't know how to deal with it. So, yeah, and I didn't work very hard to involve myself with other kids socially. It just wasn't my thing. It's like I wanted to go to work and get out of school and go be with the grown-ups again. So, but I mean, I'm so glad to hear that. From your experience, which a lot of other people have shared with me is theirs as well. It was not really a big deal at all.
Now, I want to ask about you. You also become a TV host for a lot of programs. How did that come about?
That was, maybe 20 years ago. Gosh, it all seems like yesterday, but maybe it was 20 years ago. I wanted to work, and I also wanted to be a mom. And I think I learned probably from Elizabeth Montgomery. Her daughter, Rebecca, who's an amazing TV director now, has said that there are so many more pictures of me with her mom than her with her mom. And I didn't want someone else raising my kids. So I tried to creatively find a way to work in this business I love and still be there to pack lunches and take the kids to school and be home after school. So I kind of came up with the hosting thing. And it was just a fluke that I kind of lucked into it. I got contacted by someone named Bob Bowden, who was the head of the Game Show Network at the time. And he was doing a pitch for a series to E. And he reached out to me via email and said, hey, I've got a job you'd be perfect for. And it was for E. And I thought it was kind of like a pitch for a TV show. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'd love to do another TV show. But it turned out it was a pitch for a game show type thing. And it was a one-off, like they wanted me in one episode and for the pitch, and then it would be another celebrity in the next episode. But by doing that and helping with that pitch, I became friends with a few of the executives, and we went out to lunch and meals, and they said, you know what, you should be in this business. That they were very complimentary and sincerely so, because then they did hire me. But and they at the time that Bob Bowden went on to work at Fox Reality Channel, which was a channel that covered reality shows. And they brought me in to to be on a show where we would talk about the week in reality TV. And so I could film a couple episodes, even 3 or 4 in one day, and be home in time to get the kids from school. So it kind of ended up being the perfect thing. So from doing that, you meet one person and then they recommend you to another person. So I just ended up hosting a bunch of stuff, then got my infomercial agent and was doing at least 1 or 2 a year, kind of fairly big campaigns where I'd, promote cookware in Italy or something like that. And it just kind of went from there. And it was a way to work and still be a mom.
And you also do a lot of writing for various sites. Which sites and where can we find you then?
Probably nowhere right now. I did for a while. I love to write. It's always been a very big passion of mine. So, I mean, I wrote did some things, did some travel, luxury lifestyle writing, was kind of all over the place. It was hard. That was harder to do with kids, if that makes any sense. Because,
Yes.
Writing is one of those things you need to sit down and write. And I don't know that I'm disciplined enough for it. I've been asked a million times when I'm writing a book, and I should write a cookbook, and I should write a beauty book, and all this stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to write a book. I don't know.
It's hard. It's hard. And Jonathan's rather prolific, but I know
when you do get in touch, right?
And it's funny because people want to hear Bewitched stories, and I'm happy to talk about. And I know I could write a book, and people would buy the book, and then I do a little tour and promote my book. But I don't know, if I do enough of these podcasts and shows, people will hear all the stories.
Yeah, but now I want to know, you also do a lot of work to raise awareness for autism. Which organizations can people go look up and and help out with it?
Yeah, I'm not going to recommend one organization. I'm not. And there are lots of reasons for that, because there's so many that are good organizations, and I am not ever going to suggest that anyone support an organization because I recommend it. I think that people should pick causes that are near and dear to your heart and give back and volunteer and get involved in something that resonates with you. So for me, I've always been involved with children's charities, volunteering enormously, and, volunteering locally. I've been president of PTA and the Junior Women's Club and on the city council leadership. Like I'm all about that and giving back, but always been involved with children's charities and animal charities. And my son Parker has autism, so that got me very involved with a lot of different organizations, kind of nationally and locally. And I think it's kind of whatever works for you. And the reason I started speaking about autism is that it's so prevalent and so many people don't know about it. I mean, I grew up I hadn't even heard of autism as a child. It wasn't something that was common. Looking back, there were kids in classes I had that clearly had autism, but it wasn't something that was diagnosed.
No.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I talk about it because there are celebrities with children who have all different disabilities and neurological issues that don't talk about it, and that's their right and their choice. But
Oh gosh.
seeing people, they're jogging back now. But
of course.
Tell the dogs we're in the home stretch. We're nearing the finish
So my
line.
thing is, I suggest people find something that resonates with you. I mean, for years, I volunteered at a therapeutic riding stable, and it wasn't as a celebrity. It was just as a volunteer who worked with the riders. And I've, my son now loves surfing, so we do therapeutic surfing every Sunday. And it's, I don't know. I'm not big on pushing people towards a specific organization. I'm more encouraging people to find something that really means something to them and getting involved with that.
Fair enough. Yeah. Now you also do a lot of, well, I don't know if you still do a lot of fan conventions. And
do you read this online?
Just online now. Yeah, I guess so, mostly. What's the next one you're going to be at?
It's funny. I've gone through phases. There was a time where I have a very strong work ethic, very like crazy strong. Like I'm always early. As I said, we know everybody's lines. And so there was a time when I did lots of the conventions, and it was for a variety of reasons. And this is being completely honest, because I do like meeting people who watch the show, and I know it seems to mean a lot to them. So, I mean, I like being accessible that way. I also did it to support my family. So, sometimes you do what you need to do.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I went through a phase where I wasn't doing any appearances because I thought, if it's to a cool city I've never been to, or I know that friends of mine will be there, and then it's kind of a fun weekend where you're going to be with friends and hang out. So I have not done any for a few years, but this year I actually have just booked a couple, but I can't tell you what they are because I don't remember off the top of my head.
If you remember, let me know. We'll post it in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I thought I haven't done a whole lot of them, but the ones I did, I so thoroughly enjoyed. It's just great to interact with people and when they share their memories and experiences of the projects. It's really lovely, and I've had a great time doing it.
Yeah, it's such a funny thing because for me, when I started doing them, it was fun also because you meet people from shows you watched and movies you watched growing up, and you become friends, and it's kind of cool and fun. But I also learned a lot about how I didn't want to be perceived, because inevitably, if it's a fairly large group of actors there will always be a couple who are just kind of grouchy, and they don't want to be there, and they're not nice to the people who are coming to see them, and they're a little disheveled, shall we say. So when I go, it's like I dress my best, I put on some makeup, I'm friendly to everybody. I don't even even if you're answering the same question over and over again, which you are, you'll answer
Yes.
the same question. Like I've been asked, I don't know, I guess the questions you guys are asking me. I've been
Sure.
asked most of these questions my entire life. Since I was a baby, I've been asked the same questions. But the people who are asking it, it's their first time asking it. So I don't want to say, just go look it up online. I don't want to be like that grouchy person. I make a connection and look at the people and talk to them. And so it's fun in that way.
Yeah, no, I share exactly that philosophy because one of my bad experiences, and I'm not going to go into the whole story, was I was a huge fan of this person aside from co-starring with them. And the second I asked this burning question I got slammed for it. And I thought, you know what? I will never do that to anyone. I don't care what kind of a mood I am because they are doing it for the first time. It's their chance to reach out to you and say, if it's awkward or if it's whatever it is, they get a chance to connect with this thing that was important to them. And so it's important to me, so I make it important as well.
And it's one of the reasons I think I have been able to stay in the business, because a lot of kid actors, they kind of do their thing when they're a kid and then maybe keep trying and maybe crash and burn or whatever. But I think if you look at it like any business, I go back to being nice to everybody. I am nice to everyone I've ever worked with. It's like from anyone, like I know everyone's name. I know every PA's name. I know every, the driver's names. I'm nice to every single person. And for me, it's kind of been really rewarding because they all remember that. So, I mean, I end up working with the same people because I'm not the best actor. I'm not the best anything. If you bring in, 50 women who look like me, I'm not going to get the job. But if people have worked with, you know what I mean? If I keep working because people like to work with me. I mean, I'm nice to everyone. I'm fun on set. I know my stuff. I mean, it's kind of, it's like looping. Anyone can do looping. I mean, it's really not as hard as some people want it to seem.
But finally, we'll ask you, there's been a lot of talk.
I'm looping dogs right now. How's that?
There's been a lot of talk. Even like I read last year, there was talk about a Bewitched remake. Have you heard anything recent?
I have. I've actually talked to the writers about it.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah. It's been probably a month. I know the last time we talked was right around the holidays. So I don't even know what I'm allowed to say, but I didn't sign an NDA. So
That's probably when I read it.
Yeah. No, it's, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I don't want to blow anyone's.
Oh, yeah. Don't blow anything.
No,
We're just curious about the activity surrounding
as of last year, I had a few conversations with the writers because they were, I think I reached out to them first because I thought, you know what, they're doing a Bewitched remake and it's legitimate people. I mean, everyone you meet will say, oh, you should do this. I'll write you a script. Yeah, okay. But no, this is a real thing. So I think I reached out to them on social media and said, hey, write me something.
Better be a part for me in
something
there, right?
like that. Or I don't remember what I said, but something along those lines. So we've had lots of conversations about,
awesome.
Where would this particular character be? What would they be doing? That, that kind of thing. But I can't say more. The only thing I can say is I absolutely cannot play Tabitha in it just because of aging and stuff. But
That's fantastic. Oh, I wish you the best of luck with that, and hopefully it works out. So what I read was accurate. So, but again, Erin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you've been fantastic. You've been great. I mean, thank you again. And Ike, anything to say? Because this was just great for me.
No, I mean, my gosh, you were so generous with your time. We've
Yes.
taken up enough of it. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. And so good to see you, even if it's through the computer.
great to see you guys. Have a great day.
Well, again, this has been Pop Culture Retro. On behalf of myself and Ike Eisenmann, we thank Erin Murphy for joining us, and please subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.